when students talk about how nervous they are about delivering a presentation, or they worry about themselves and they're going to stumble over words, or they're going to feel nervous, or they're going to be shaky, or it's going to be hard to have eye contact, all those delivery things, even they're going to forget what they're going to say. I remind them that, you know what, the point of the presentation, it's really not about you. It's about the people who are listening. And it's always about our listeners. So we have to think about how are we going to adapt to the audience, because the audience is what matters the most. What do we know? So let's think about this audience we have. What do we know about each other at this point? Well, we know that we're here because we are required to take this class as a gen ed, right? So most of us are not here of our own free will. We also might know some information about each other from the introductory discussion. The introductory presentation is coming up, so we'll know a little bit more about each other. But honestly, that's about it. You know, maybe a couple of you in the class, you are friends outside of class and you know each other that way. But that's all we can really say that we know about each other. But there are some things we can say that we know about communication, this big umbrella of communication. It is transactional, which means what I do impacts you, what you do impacts me. One of the biggest challenges of this virtual environment, even though I encourage you to have a live audience member while you're recording your speech, I really do encourage you to do that. Gives you an opportunity to have somebody give you feedback, you know, nonverbal feedback, or maybe they're nodding their head, something. But the audience that you would pick are all people that you know. That really doesn't simulate what that audience of strangers would look like. So it is hard to be transactional in a virtual class. We are asynchronously transactional, meaning I will post a video and you'll eventually comment on it, but it's not happening in real time. But communication is still transactional, right? There's still some give and take. We know that. We know that communication has a content component, right? There is the content of what we talk about. There's also a relationship component. What is the relationship? Right now, we kind of have a bit of a professional relationship. We are all in a class together. We are not close friends. We don't work together. You know, we're not really ever meeting in person, even though I'll have a couple of Zoom sessions where people can choose to drop in or not. So we won't develop that same type of a relationship that's in class, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a relationship. We're participating in discussions, and we actually have some really great discussions that happen throughout the semester in the class. Um, and communication is an attempt to take the ideas that are in our heads and help another person understand them. And for me, that's the big part. That's what I focus on in this course. So when we're thinking about how do I adapt to my audience, that's always what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take the ideas in my head and get another person understand them. That is true whether my audience is one, or my audience is 20, or my audience is 100. If you've ever been around kids, think about how you talk to kids, right? If you've been around older people, think about how you have to adapt language to use terms that maybe somebody who isn't familiar with those words would understand. So when we're thinking about an audience, now let's pretend that here we are been asked to give a presentation somewhere. You've been asked, and you're going to be giving the commencement address as you graduate from HAC. We need to think about some demographic characteristics and some things we might want to think about. What is the age range of our audience? That could have an impact. Think about even just in general. If I'm going into a preschool class and doing something with 4-year-olds, I'm going to be talking as I would to a 4-year-old using different language and different structure than I would if I was going into a room of 30-year-old business executives. So age matters. Gender, right? What I can say and what I can do, experiences of people based on their gender are different. And so that's something that I might want to think about. Race, right? experiences of people of different races in different cultures, and on that line, ethnicity, culture, those are all variables that can impact. One of the things that is fun about the campus class is that when there are people that want to share something about their culture, especially food, right? They'll often bring it in. And gosh, in the virtual class, you can do that, but it's not the same whenever we don't have that nice food to taste. Religion is another area that we might think about, right? So if I am going and I'm speaking at my church group, I have an audience of people that have similar beliefs, but if I am at a general audience, I might not have that. Group affiliation, occupation, education, socioeconomic status. As you can see, there's a lot. Sexual orientation, family status. You might be saying to yourself, well, how am I ever going to adapt to all of this? You're not. Right? We're going to try our best to do that. And I have a principle that I go by, and it helps. I think that by and large, most of us are not trying to offend people. We do it. We absolutely do it, right? But I like to believe we're not trying to do that. At least most of us are not trying to do that. And I like to believe that I can be corrected if I do something that I'm like, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that way, or I shouldn't have done that way, that I can learn from that. All these different demographic characteristics can make it challenging when we're going to talk to an audience. But that doesn't mean that we can't think about them whenever we're creating our message, how we're creating it, and the language that we're choosing to use. But there are things that are deeper, right? So demographic characteristics, I could probably maybe get that a little bit easier. It's harder to get these psychographic characteristics, these psychological traits of people. And this has to do with beliefs, attitudes, values. So the beliefs that people hold, these are statements that they hold to be true, right? So I believe that whatever. Some people will say, my opinion is. And I can't always know that. I don't know that from an audience, right? I can't infer that because you are a certain age, you believe or value or your attitudes about this, because that might not be true. Values, going to values, are very strongly held positions on some issue. They are very hard to change. You are not going to change a person's values in an easy way. And so when we are considering information that we're creating, considering what the beliefs, values, and attitudes might be are important, because if we use language or organize things in a way that alienates our audience, they will not receive our message. When we get to the end of the semester, we're going to do some stuff with persuasion that's going to take us there. Fortunately for the informative presentation, you're not going to be picking topics that are going to take you anywhere close to this territory anyway, so you'll be in good shape. So how do you analyze this audience? Let's do that. So remember, we're doing an informative presentation. So you're going to be teaching us with information. You're the teacher, not the preacher, right? We are not doing any persuasion. So we're going to have a discussion that's up at the topic discussion. It is very important that you look at, once you post, you look at what people are posting back. And really important that you look at what I'm posting back. Because if you are going down a path that is taking you too close to the river of persuasion, I will try to pull you back. And if you do not heed my advice, it will not bode well for you for the informative presentation. That's one of the best ways to think about, oh, okay, I'm going to give 3 ideas for a topic, and wow, everybody said they like this topic. So maybe I should do this one. Now, maybe that's not the one you want to do. It's okay to pick a different one. But now you have to think, oh, okay, now it's this audience. So how do I want to make this interesting for this audience? Also thinking about how what you're going to cover, because you can't cover everything. If you're doing a presentation about Legos, right? You can't talk about everything there is to know about Legos. You have to think about, well, what's going to be the most important information to cover to increase understanding? Think about how you're going to organize. When things are not organized, it's hard for us to follow and we will drift off. Just a few more points. So considering your audience for this class will hopefully help you practice. This gives you an opportunity to practice before you're out there in the real world, professionally or personally, in some speaking situation. I really do view this as an opportunity for everything to we're going to do this. We're going to try. You're going to try your best. You're going to get feedback, and hopefully you're going to take that feedback and you're going to adapt and change for the next one. That I like to see growth along the line throughout the semester. And so that's what we're going to focus on. Adapting your message to your audience should never be manipulative. This is not about, well, tell them what they want to hear, right? It's about thinking, how do I get what's in my head across to them in a way that they'll understand? Um, Considering the diversity of our demographics, psychological traits, life experiences, worldviews, it makes us more competent communicators. Just makes us we're more likely to get our ideas out to more people in ways that they can understand them. Sometimes we put our foot in our mouth. We just do. Considering the audience will hopefully reduce the frequency of that happening. And that's why it's so important to consider your audience.